Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving you a very interesting video. We're going to do 4 different videos for this topic. This is going to be the worst thing about every single Call of Duty multiplayer. I'm going to do another video doing the best thing about every single Call of Duty multiplayer, and then do the same thing for zombies. So that'll be kind of fun. But today we're going to be doing the worst thing about every Call of Duty multiplayer. If I can pick just one specific thing about each multiplayer experience that I think made it not nearly as good as it could have been. Starting with Call of Duty 4, the perk balance. The perk balance in a lot of CODs have been really bad, and I don't think this is the worst time we've ever had perk balance not be so good, but for Call of Duty 4 standards, most of this game was fine. I mean, it's the first Call of Duty that really was this ambitious with its multiplayer experience and had a lot of big changes, so I'm not going to give a game shit for being older. So obviously the fact that it only has 3 kill streaks, would I prefer more kill streaks? Obviously, but it was the first COD to have kill streaks in the first place, so there's no point of bashing it for things that just wouldn't make sense to bash it for back in 2007. But the perk balance has always been really bad in this game. You have perk 1, which has bandolier, and then a bunch of other perks that just let you get more equipment or more explosives or something, but most of the time people either went with frag ×3 or bandolier. The rest of them were pretty much useless. Perk 2, we all know it was either juggernaut or stopping power, and every other perk in that category was useless. And then for perk 3, it was pretty much either using steady aim or the hipfire one that made your hipfire better, or maybe 1 or 2 other perks there, but majority of them were completely useless. So that made class designs very boring. We kind of went with the same perks for every class, and it didn't make for a fun experience in my opinion. Even though I love COD 4, the customization and the perks were just not very good. World at War is a pretty easy one. That's going to be the gun balance. Now, people always say gun balance is pretty bad in like almost every other Call of Duty, but I look at gun balance as being a big problem if you have a lot of underpowered guns. I don't really look at the overpowered guns. Every COD has their OP guns here and there. We even see it today. But as long as there's a lot of guns that are viable, it's okay. In World at War, majority of the guns in this game are pretty much useless. The SMGs dominate in pretty much every single situation. I mean, the MP40 can outclass pretty much any AR or sniper rifle at a distance. You know that's a problem. This is an SMG. It should not be dominating guns at long distances, but it still does. And even the other SMGs like the PPSH and Thompson are still much better than a lot of other options in this game. Some people like to snipe. The STG is okay in some situations, but most of the guns are pretty bad in this game. You're not going to be rocking like M1 Grands or Springfields all that often and being able to successfully do very good with them. If you're going up against someone with an MP40, they're probably going to dominate the lobby. Gun balance was just not good, and even make it worse, there was no attachments other than a couple attachments here and there, so there wasn't much ability to make bad guns good like you could with a game like Vanguard, where there's a lot of bad guns that can get better with attachments. You can't make any bad guns good in this game. If they're bad, it's bad, and you're just gonna have to deal with it from then on out. Gun balance and gun variety in general was really bad in World at War. Modern Warfare 2, I don't think I even have to go on to explain this one for that long. I think you guys all know the answer here. One-man army and noob tubes. Those are by far the worst things about this game. Just those combination of having noob tubes with one-man army, having unlimited noob tubes in a full match. You have so much power with that, and people abuse the living hell out of it, and they still do to this day. Without that, I think Modern Warfare 2 would have been a game that would have been much, much better. But one-man army noob tubes certainly did ruin a big part of Modern Warfare 2 for a lot of players, including myself. So if we ever get a remaster of this, please, please remove it. Black Ops 1 was honestly one that I had trouble thinking of because I don't really have many issues with Black Ops 1. I don't love this game as much as a couple other Call of Duties, but it's definitely one of my favorite multiplayer experiences. And the only thing I can really think of is the poor hit detection. Now, I'll be honest, the poor hit detection actually made the game better in some ways because of making it a slower time to kill, but I don't think it's good for this time to kill to just drop just because of poor hit detection. Yes, it inadvertently makes some parts of the game better, but as a whole, it is quite frustrating losing gunfights only because your bullets just weren't tracking properly. There's a lot of hit detection issues within Black Ops 1. Even Black Ops 2 had that a little bit, but it was definitely not as bad as Black Ops 1. There's been many times where I'll be spraying somebody with a FAMAS and the bullets just, they won't connect. They don't, even though I'm literally shooting him, they just won't connect properly, and then he'll get the kill because he either has better Wi-Fi or it just happened to work in his favor in that moment. So Black Ops 1, definitely that's the biggest issue with that game, but everything else I honestly like this multiplayer a lot, so I don't have much else to complain about. Modern Warfare 3 is going to be the time to kill. The time to kill was way too fast in Modern Warfare 3. Time to kill is, in my opinion, one of the most important things to a Call of Duty experience. So when a game has a time to kill that's way too fast, it's going to be an issue for me. I had that issue with a lot of Call of Duties, but this one definitely, out of everything in the game, this is what was bringing it down the most for me. I don't really hate much of Modern Warfare 3, but there's a couple things here and there, and time to kill, I think, was the biggest one. It also is a very ugly game, I'll be honest. I don't like how gray and gross this game's color palette is, but the time to kill being too fast made a lot of the gunfights just not enjoyable at all for me. It felt very slow because of that, very campy. So I'm not the hugest fan of Modern Warfare 3. I know the game could be fast-paced in certain lobbies depending on who you're playing with, but the time to kill being too fast just made everything feel meh to me. I absolutely love Black Ops 2, you all know that, but there's two things that bother the heck out of me, and I had to just add both of them in because I couldn't really choose which one I hate more than the other one. But I'm going to go with snipers and C4s. So I know people will probably say snipers is what made this game great. I mean, yeah, people who love quickscoping and trick shotting, that was one of the best parts of this game. But for someone who doesn't really snipe all that much and just kind of likes using ARs and SMGs, snipers were way too overpowered in this game. We have to admit. I mean, they were ridiculously overpowered. The amount of times you get into a gunfight and it just ends within a split of a second because the guy quickscopes you is ridiculous. And C4s do the same thing. They were way too overpowered. You can just toss them wherever you want, blow them up, and they'll kill anyone in the vicinity. And it's pretty much just ruins a lot of gunfight situations because everything else about this game is really good. The balance is actually really solid in Black Ops 2, but when you include overpowered snipers and C4s, it kind of ruins some of it. Call of Duty Ghosts is actually going to be the exact same as Modern Warfare 3. Time to kill was too fast, but it was even worse in COD Ghosts. The time to kill was the fastest it's ever been in COD, to the point where it was almost close to the time to kill in hardcore mode. I don't know what they were thinking. It made a lot of COD Ghosts just really slow paced. It's why it's one of the slowest paced CODs of all time. Very much not skill based at all. And there's a lot of awesome things about COD Ghosts, don't get me wrong, but this combined with the awful launch maps just made for the game to be not nearly as good as I was hoping it was going to be. But I gotta say, the time to kill being too fast is definitely the worst thing about Call of Duty Ghost. For Advanced Warfare, I'm gonna have to go with the boost jumping, and not the idea of exosuits because I actually loved how they worked in Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, but I think the exo movement in Advanced Warfare was very clunky. It did not feel smooth, it did not feel controlled, it felt very random, and it kind of was. It was just, you jumped twice essentially. It was just double boosting, and you could do the little strafe boost. It was a little bit fun when it was first out, but I think after we got Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare's much smoother advanced movement system, I realized that Advanced Warfare's was not very good, and it made for some really weird engagements where people would be really high in the air, especially with how the map design was. You can get like really high because they would make the maps very vertical, and I don't think that was good for Call of Duty. I think Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare's map design kept things way more grounded and much better than what it was in Advanced Warfare. I think Advanced Warfare's movement was kind of all over the place. Black Ops 3 is another Call of Duty that I absolutely love. So many things about it, but that does not mean there is no issues with it. I think you guys probably know what I'm going to say. Supply drop only weapons. I don't mind supply drops as a whole. I was okay with them for the most part, but there being weapons exclusive in them was really ridiculous because, I mean, we just want to use the new weapons, and having no actual way to earn them, whether it's just pay them directly or for free, was kind of frustrating. You know, there's some bribes they did which gave you free weapons, which was fine, but as a whole, you couldn't really earn all the weapons without getting really lucky or spending a bunch of money, and still needing luck even if you spend a bunch of money. You could spend thousands of dollars and still not get what you want, which is just a terrible system. I think we can all agree with that. It's easily the biggest problem with Black Ops 3, but everything else about this game was fantastic, so that's all right. Infinite Warfare is one that, I mean, I love this game. I think you guys know that. I know a lot of people don't, but I absolutely love this multiplayer, and I had trouble thinking of something because they kind of fixed the supply drop system, but the one thing I could think of is something involving the supply drop systems, and that was that they did have a lot of variants that were exclusive to supply drops. It wasn't nearly as bad as having guns exclusive to supply drops, but it was specific weapon variants. A little frustrating because they had an awesome system where you could craft most of the weapon variants, or you can even earn them through doing the mission teams and leveling those up. So you have all that. Why even bother making a bunch of them exclusive to supply drops? I know why, money, obviously. More people are more likely to buy supply drops if they're exclusive to that, but it was just frustrating. You could have just made them more expensive or something in the salvage pool, and people would probably still buy supply drops anyway so they can earn salvage faster to get them, but it's frustrating because there's a lot of awesome looking variants that are there, but I'm never going to earn them probably because I don't get lucky enough to get them, you know what I mean? So that's kind of a problem that I think this game definitely has, but again, just like Black Ops 3, I love majority of this multiplayer regardless, so it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't ruin the game for me. I still absolutely love this multiplayer. For Call of Duty World War II, I'm going to actually say how buggy this game is. It was definitely way worse at launch. The launch for this game was abysmal with the amount of bugs and glitches, but even to this day, this is probably one of the just least stable CODs I've played in a while. I don't know, like, it's just a lot of issues with it, trying to navigate even through the menus. It's always lagging, there's always glitches, there's always bugs that kind of just ruin things. I definitely don't crash in this game as much as I do in like Vanguard or even in Cold War, but it's just very buggy, this game, and till this day, so I don't know. It's just one of those games, has a lot of issues with it. But in terms of the gameplay and everything like that, most of it I enjoyed. I don't hate this multiplayer. I just think some of it is definitely bland, so the only thing I really think of is the bugs. I love Black Ops 4 multiplayer, you guys know that, but the one thing that I think definitely takes away from this experience is the specialists. I don't hate specialists. I don't think they're the worst thing ever, but there's definitely some of them that are really overpowered and really annoying to deal with. Some of them, like Zero, for example, there should never be a specialist that can just completely hack all streaks in the sky. Some of the weapons that some of the specialists use are kind of annoying, like the War Machine and the Ruins gravity spikes. They definitely do bother me. I don't think it ruins the experience because each player maybe gets to use their ability maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times a game. Their gear they can use a lot more, but in terms of their ability, it's like 2 to 3 times a game, maybe sometimes less, depending on how many kills they get and depending on what mode you're playing. So it doesn't like completely ruin anything, but I would just prefer if they were like only passive abilities. Like I don't mind Crash's abilities or Recon because they're all passive abilities, so there's really no issue with them. But when people have these really lethal abilities, that's when it becomes a problem. I didn't love them in Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare either, but I think this is where they were probably the biggest issue. And I think Black Ops 4 as a whole, this is the biggest issue about this game. But I love like everything else about this game. There's not a lot that I don't like about the multiplayer in Black Ops 4. I absolutely love the gameplay of Black Ops 4. And there's even a mode that didn't have specialists in the mode at all. I played that mode a lot during the game's life cycle, but it's not really a playable mode anymore because no one really is in that lobby. So it's still definitely something that holds back the game a little bit, but not by a lot. There's a lot I could say about Modern Warfare 2019, and I think Time to Kill was definitely a big one, but the one I'm actually going to go with that I think was even worse was the map design. I just dreaded the map design in this game. It was very random, very much not what I want from a Call of Duty experience. There was no flow to a lot of the maps. They worked in Search and Destroy. They were completely fine in Search and Destroy, but in any respawn mode, there was no predictability to the spawns. They were just kind of all over the place. So it kind of led to not only there being a lot of camping, but also just bad flow. A lot of people shooting you from behind, and when you have a fast time to kill, that makes it even worse because there's really no time to react. I think that was one of my biggest issues with this game. The only times I really enjoyed this game is when I was playing the better maps, like Shoot House, for example. I thought Shoot House was an okay map, so I kind of enjoyed that, but most of the maps in the game were pretty rough and led for an experience that I did not like that much. For Black Ops Cold War, I think we all know skill-based matchmaking has been plaguing a couple of the past Call of Duties, but this is the only one where I think, yeah, that was the worst thing about the game. Modern Warfare, I hated skill-based matchmaking in that game, but I don't think it was as bad as the map design was. But the Cold War multiplayer, I like a lot of the multiplayer's gameplay, so I mean, I have to just go with skill-based matchmaking as being the worst thing about this multiplayer. And I think the community would mostly agree, because this is probably the thing that's been complained about the most during Cold War's life cycle was skill-based matchmaking. And I don't think it was any worse in this than it was in Modern Warfare or Vanguard. It was just that the rest of the game was just much better in my opinion, so the skill-based matchmaking just stood out a little bit more, and that's just what happened. It definitely ruined some things. I wanted to play against different types of players, but most of the time I was being put into lobbies with people who were pretty good, because I'm also pretty good. I have said many times I understand why it's there. I don't think it ruins the game or anything, but it's definitely holding back the game from being a lot better than it possibly could be. And lastly, we have Vanguard. I'm going to go with the 10 attachment gunsmith. I don't really like the gunsmith class system as a whole. I think it's nice having a lot of attachments, but I don't like how the class is set up with you being forced to get a specific amount of attachments, a specific amount of perks and all that. And Vanguard's is just way too much. 10 attachments is ridiculous. First of all, that's completely ruining the time to kill consistency in this game. There's a reason why gunfights are so inconsistent, because some guns can have way too high of damage numbers to the point where it's just unfair, because you have 10 attachments, so you can put so many attachments to buff up your gun like crazy. So now the time to kill is way faster than it should be by default. and that's not good. And it's just ridiculous being forced to have 10 attachments too. Most of the guns don't require that. Most guns don't need that. So instead there should be more balance between the attachments and the perks and the equipment and the class design, just like there was with pick 10, but they don't have that here. It's all over the place. The attachments are also really frustrating, like the incinerary ones. It's just, I don't like the attachment system going on here in Vanguard. I think it's by far the worst thing about Vanguard. And that's going to do it for this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. What is your least favorite thing about every single Call of Duty game? Let me hear that in the comments. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.